run away from our position. It's the reason why the Republican Party has gotten kicked in the teeth the last three cycles. Because it's been a party that's always apologizing. We're done. We are a party that's inclusive. We are a party that represents every Michigander, irrespective of any factor about you. I'm here to protect your constitutional rights. Even people who don't agree with me, who are angry with me, I'm going to protect your constitutional rights. Because fundamentally, I don't care how you vote, even if you're a Democrat, I'm going to fight for your constitutional rights. Because those are given to us by God and our government. And that's what we're focused on.
So you don't worry that a tweet like this may lose voters in the future?
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, just one more question. Don't you feel that there's a lack of sensitivity in the political discourse, and that we want to teach our children to disagree in a civil way, in a way that isn't offensive? And if there were some way of modifying that tweet to make it, yes, I understand you don't care if people are offended by it, but people are offended by it, and I think honest people, and maybe some of your friends that you with the tattoos on might be offended also. Don't you think it's important for us as adults and as great leaders to show a civil side to the political discourse?
I disagree with the notion that it's not civil. Pointing to a historical event is not trivializing it. Now, if I'm trivializing a historical event is downplaying the realities of it, downplaying the abuse Jewish people and other people face from the hands of the Nazis, that actually is trivializing it. We're not downplaying it. We're saying, guys, this is real. And I think part of the problem in America, we have been so comfortable. We've been so comfortable for so long. The concept of an abusive government is just crazy talk. And again, history has shown us that we should take it seriously. One of the things that we have been working on very intentionally as a Republican Party is elevating the voices of immigrants. That is something that is a mission of mine, to elevate the voices of immigrants. You know, again, when I mentioned our video series, one of the women who participated in our video series from Cuba talked about how Castro kidnapped her father. That's a real fact. I'm not trivializing that by bringing it up. Or the people who lived in Czechoslovakia, former part of the USSR, how they were separated, and there were dogs that would guard the fences that they were stuck behind. That's not trivializing to bring it up. Talking about historical atrocities should never be viewed as trivializing them. So I'm actually concerned, to be honest with you, and I thank you for that question, I'm actually concerned the condition of America. That we're bothered by speaking of historical events. I argue that we as Americans view the simple nature of this comment and become soft. We become soft. Pointing to history is important. We learn from it. That way we don't make the mistakes again. Kind of like the adage of throwing a frog in boiling water or throwing a frog in cold water and turning up the heat. The heat is being turned up. But again, because Americans are so comfortable, if we look at the fall of civilizations, think back that America's so comfortable, I don't think we realize our civilization is in a state of decline. So I challenge everybody to study the fall of the Roman Empire. And if we don't stop, I'm afraid we won't be able to bring this back.
Have you heard from any Republicans, like personally? I know we've seen tweets and statements. Have you heard from anyone within the Republican Party, or specifically talking to you, asking you to take it down, or having concerns about it, or have you had any people reaching out that are asking you to keep it up?
I mean, the thing about it is, I have had no one contact me about wanting to take it down. The reality is that when we look at the condition of our state, people are more concerned with just the tweet. Because ultimately, people know my intent. I've been very clear what my intent is. As I said, I speak here as a descendant of slaves who, my family experienced government abuse. I mean, 3 of my 4 ancestors came north because of the Great Migration, escaping racial violence. So I'm just really not interested in someone trying to lecture me about being sensitive, okay, considering what happened to my ancestors. My point is this, is that we have so many other things to focus on, and these red flag laws are extremely concerning. We have the issue of Goshen building a battery factory when that company has sworn allegiance to the Chinese Communist Party, building a factory in our state. We have bigger issues to worry about than the tweet. And when we are spending our time on being offended by things like this, we're ignoring the real problems that, irrespective of political affiliation, religion, or anything else, are a threat to us all. I think
Chairwoman, do you have any concerns about this impacting your ability to fundraise? I mean, I've talked to Republicans today who are people who would be fundraisers who are very upset about this tweet.
And which of those?
I don't think I'd be able to say all of their names, but I'm sure that if you looked on Twitter, you'd be able to see all of
Those
them.
are people who didn't like me anyway. So I really don't care what they have to say. All
But
right.
do you care about being able to make sure that your party has enough?
Oh, of course. I never stated or implied that I didn't. Those were people who weren't going to support us anyways. So I'm not going to waste my time apologizing to people who have trivial reasons for disliking me. I mean, the fact of the matter, I really don't. I mean, I appreciate your question, so my comment is in no way to dismiss you, but I really don't care what they have to say. I mean, these are individuals who are dying to be relevant. They don't care about the well-being of our country. They just care about their own petty little power fiefdom they're losing. So. Yes. Oh, that's you had her hand up. Okay, I guess that's it. I thank you all for coming. God bless you all. Thank you.
My name is Kristina Karamo, chair of the Michigan Republican Party. So we put out a tweet depicting a horrifying image of a bunch of rings collected by victims of the Holocaust. And we made a point that these people who were victims of the Holocaust were disarmed prior to their executions. And that, for some reason, got a lot of people upset. Some, I believe, were politically motivated, and others, I believe, felt that I was trivializing the horrors of the Holocaust for political gain, which is completely false. I would never do such a thing. I have too much respect for human life, for the fact that every human is made in the image of God, to trivialize or make light of people being murdered. The point is that history has taught us that people who are vulnerable make easy victims for the government. And my entire point is that history has shown us that we need to protect the rights to keep and bear arms. And that's what the press conference is about, because the controversy to me was politically motivated by the Democrats and their allies to try to create a narrative that just simply didn't exist.
Some people ask questions about people. Some people look at have the right to have them.
Yeah, my goal is not to offend people, but I will never stop speaking truth because people choose to get offended. That's never my goal. I don't operate to try to upset or offend people, or make my goal is never to hurt people's feelings. It's not that I like for people to be upset, but I'm not going to stop speaking truth because someone is upset. God knows my heart. I never said anything disparaging. To me, to minimize the horrors of the Holocaust is trivializing it. Our point was to show the gravity of what happened and revealing the gravity of what can occur if citizens aren't armed is our entire point.
What do you think is the importance of people still have the right of having guns to protect self-protection?
And to your point, I said in my press conference, growing up around immigrants had a massive impact on me. And as I mentioned, we did a video project with 2 Chinese immigrants, a Cuban immigrant, and a couple from Czechoslovakia. And their stories were all about an abusive government and how they had to escape an abusive government. Then all of that has occurred. We've seen history within the past 100 years. How many people have come to America escaping an abusive government? So pointing to one historical event, you could change out the historical event, but the image, that picture, we wanted that picture because it created a response. Because I can tell you about a historical event, but to see it is something different. My grandfather was a World War II soldier, and he went to Germany after the people had been liberated from the concentration camps. And he was just sharing before, when I was a kid, even though the people had been liberated, but just walking by those places where people were tortured and abused, it just did something to him. So I think imagery is powerful, and showing legitimate imagery of citizens who've been mistreated by their government can be more powerful than just words.
one last question. What made you make the decision to have the press conference today?
Well, a lot of media outlets contacted one of our team members for an interview, so I said, hey, let's just bring them all together and make it easier and just ask me your questions. I like press conferences because it's an open format where people can ask whatever they like. I think they're more organic instead of just a stage interview because you never know what's going to happen.
Do you have anything to say to our audience?
I just encourage everybody to learn from history. Learn from history, and we have to protect our Second Amendment rights. Thank you.
My name is Mark Fortin. I'm chairman of the Macomb County Republican Party.
What do you think is important to have the press conference today?
I think that it's very telling. We have a fantastic state party chair lady who, for once, the Michigan Republican Party is on the road to becoming Republican again. It amazes me, though, the kind of things that get people all riled and upset. From what I saw was on, I think it was Twitter or something, there was a photograph of this box. It was a large box containing wedding rings and rings. Those were rings from basically one group of people, the Jewish people of Europe, that the Nazis were destroying systematically. They were totally unarmed, like most Europeans are. They were totally unarmed and herded. And they were collected and herded into ghettos. Then they were herded into boxcars. They were herded, if you look at the old films, by a very small number of troops, because the troops are out there fighting the English and the Americans and so on and so forth, right? All they had was a handful of troops controlling thousands of people and murdering them in cold blood. This is history that repeats itself. We now have a communist Democrat Party. This communist Democrat Party in the state of Michigan is illegally pushing unconstitutional gun laws. The Constitution is clear, shall not be infringed. There's a definition to those words, shall not be infringed. They took an oath to defend that Constitution. They have violated their oath, and they are the criminals. They have committed a criminal act. They pass any unconstitutional laws, whether it's that or whether it's churches having to hire certain individuals that they don't want to hire. No matter what it is, they're violating the Constitution. They're committing a criminal act. And these people, to be so upset because a box of rings were shown of innocent victims who were unarmed and herded like cattle to their death, is absolutely insulting. They say they're insulted. They're a bunch of wackos. I think the people speaking here, representing the certain community, they are communists themselves, and that's the way it is. This is just terrible what's happening to our country. They're trying to disarm us, and they're not looking at what's happened throughout history like our founders did. Kristina, I'm sorry, I'm kind of dry. Kristina Karamo mentioned that herself over and over again. History, every group, the group that she came from, Asians, everybody have suffered these mass genocides, being unarmed, herded by a small number of armed people to their deaths because certain people want to control the government. And that is what's going on right now in Michigan. It's unconstitutional laws. We should be resisting them and declaring them for what they are. They are corrupt. They are the criminals. They are violating the Constitution of the United States and their illegal laws. And that's the way it is. And to me, it's just horrific to see people whose their ancestors, represented by that box of rings, their ancestors were almost destroyed in the most brutal way, unarmed, and they're whining and crying because they're defending the same type of mindset and criminals that did it to their ancestors. And they're horrified because we showed the picture of the box of rings. I mean, how many thousands of rings are in that? You know, you saw the box. Thousands of little rings of people. It was stripped from them before they walked into the gas chambers at gunpoint, unarmed. It's a crying shame.
Could you explain again where the picture showed on Twitter?
I saw them. I don't know if it's Twitter or one of the social media sites, and I've seen it before on Facebook in months past where they put that out there. It's a photograph. I think it's a black and white photograph of a box that looks like it's maybe 2 feet by 1.5 feet, maybe more. I don't know, but it's just full of rings, thousands of them. And then there's other pictures out there of piles of shoes. They were forced to take their shoes off before they got gassed. And just piles and piles of shoes, kids' shoes, women's shoes, men's shoes, piles. And then there's all the stuff we've seen in history too. There was, what was that in Asia? I could be wrong. We're being interviewed. Pol Pot or something like that with stacks of skulls. I mean, look what man is capable of doing. And our defenses are our Constitution. Yes, that was Cambodia, wasn't it? And then in China, too, there was massacre. All over the world, none of us are. We all have human hearts. It doesn't matter whether you're European or Asian or African. It doesn't matter. And the heart of man is corrupt. And I'll tell you, man seeks power, and that's the way it is. And our founders put in place over 200 years ago a constitution whereby that was to be prevented. And we have allowed, we've been so safe for so long in this country, protected by 2 oceans. We've been so protected and so asleep that we've allowed these people over time to take over our government and everything else, and now they're trying to do the death blow in Michigan. They're trying to eliminate our rights, make us defenseless. They're letting criminals go. The criminals that get the guns, they're letting them go, these corrupt judges and prosecutors. But boy, oh boy, you and me, that's a different story, because we got to be controlled. And they have every intention to do it. And we as American citizens, whether we're in Michigan or anywhere else, we better start standing up, because our backs are against the wall.
I'm Terrence McCaskey. I'm a former state representative, just left office this past January for 36th District in Macomb County.
So what do you think the importance of press conference today?
Well, I hope what we took out of it was the importance of our rights being infringed upon on the Second Amendment, and we're not distracted by any other means that somebody brought up about this tweet. We're celebrating our legislators up in Lansing attacking our constitutional rights. I'm fully against red flag laws. I was the only law enforcement officer to stand up in Macomb County and speak for our Second Amendment, and we got in our county executive office, and I will continue to do so. We need to stand up for our constitutional rights for the Second Amendment. It shall not be infringed upon. It's not. It's been black and white, and that's what we need to continue to do to keep America safe. Like President Reagan said, we are on the last frontier. We're the last free country in America. There's nowhere else for us to go. And God gave us our right to protect ourselves and our families. And more laws and restrict red flag laws, especially, take away our constitutional rights. There's no due process. I can call up an anonymous tip and say that a neighbor or ex-girlfriend or boyfriend is crazy and has a gun, and law enforcement's going to go there and take their weapons without due process, and it's just unconstitutional and take away their rights as an American. That's a slippery slope. What are we going to be able to do then in the future? Just accuse any one of our citizens of any crime, and law enforcement's going to be able to go in there and search their home, take their vehicles, and not do due process? We're just going to we are innocent until proven guilty here in America, not guilty until proven innocent, and that's what red flag laws do. They consider you guilty until proven innocent. Like I said, I was a law enforcement officer for 35 years. The unique opportunity to work federal, state, county, and local law enforcement, and I always tell everybody, in 35 years of law enforcement, you know how many times I've arrested a legal gun owner with their gun on a gun crime? Never. Not one time. Now, has officers done it with somebody who, that had a CPL that may have went rogue? Sure. But it's so rare that to take away legal citizens' weapons or try to take away our rights in any manner, to me, is just it's unheard of, it's ungodly, and we need to do everything we can to fight against it.
What's the background of the situation after we said that people are afraid that their right of having gun to for self-protection may get lost. What's the background? Would you please introduce to our audience?
Well, I think people, this is the United States. We're founded on having weapons in the Wild West and taking care of ourselves and our freedom against Britain. And the Second Amendment, like most people forget, was for the tyranny of a government, first and foremost, then our self-protection, and then hunting and whatever else we want to do with our weapons. But it's against the tyranny of a government. I worked for our government. I ran an FBI task force for 8 years, a DEA task force for 4 years. I love my country. I love the United States, but I do fear our government in some aspects, and I do not believe it is conscionable to give the government total control over us, because these rights are inherited not by the government but by God, and these politicians work for us. We don't work for them. And that's what we have to remember. We, the people, need to take back our democracy, and we need to, every one of these political folks that are elected in Lansing and Washington, if they're not doing the will of the people, they need to be voted out and they need to be heard. And we're not going to take this sitting down. We're going to be heard. It's not going to be by no means violence. We're not saying guns. We're not saying fighting. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to protest. We're going to go to their offices. We're going to send emails. We're going to do it the way the American system was set up, where we're going to let these politicians know that if they're not going to be for the people, then we need to get them out of office, and they won't be there. And the Macomb Republican Party and our new Republican chair with Kristina Karamo and Mark Fortin and Lisa Mankiewicz here in Macomb County, I think you're seeing a rise of the party the way it's supposed to be, the true America. And like Kristina said, we've talked to many immigrants. My family came from Poland. My wife's family was from Sicily. They'll tell you about socialism and what happens there and the tyranny of a government, and how easy it is for the government to take control and promise you the world and promise you utopia, and then the next thing you know, you're standing in a breadline. There's a reason why the far left, I don't even call it the Democratic Party anymore, it's the Socialist Party, wants your weapons. There's a sinister reason behind this. And people should really take a step back and ask, why are they going after our guns so much? And new laws are going to do nothing, like I said, but take away the rights of law-abiding citizens. I came up in the city of Detroit. Guns, since I was this big, 10, 11 years old, people were carrying guns, and they weren't legal guns. Criminals can get a hold of guns, and they always will. The only people that are going to lose guns are law-abiding citizens.
So is there any law going on, a new law going on right now about this?
Well, Lansing and the Democrats are pushing these laws, and we need to stand up and fight against them. The laws that they're trying to put forward are unconstitutional. Like I say, the politicians don't give us our rights. God does, and these people need to realize that, and they need to go to our Constitution, open up our Constitution, and realize our Second Amendment will not be infringed upon. And that's what the people got to let our politicians know. All right. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you.
I am Macomb County Commissioner Barbara Zinner.
And what do you think of today's press conference?
I didn't get to see the press conference. I was on my way here for another meeting that's going to be starting. So I'm sorry I didn't get to see that.
So do you know that there's a law is going on that and this press conference can tell people about the right of Second Amendment?
Yes.
Would you please
Yes.
make some comment?
Well, I caught someone outside who, one of the reporters, and I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, Kristina Karamo was in here making statements about gun rights." And I said, "Oh, great." And I said to myself, I'm thinking, good, we need to have our gun rights. That's guaranteed in the Constitution. I remember my father, who was a World War II veteran, and a few years before his death, he looked at me one day, and never knowing that I would be a government official. And he said to me, "Barbara," he said, "never let them take your guns away." Not that I necessarily had guns. And I said, "Yes, Dad, I won't let them take I won't let them take the guns away." Never knowing that I would ever be in a position, and I don't know that I'm in a position now to do that, but we can never, in the United States of America, let our guns be taken away, because the amendment says that we are to be able to fight any government or our government if it is a tyrannical government, we have to be able to keep our freedom. And the United States of America is to be a free society, a free country. And other countries have lost their rights, and we are not to lose our rights. And the people who want to take our guns away, and it's going to be a step process. I remember my father explaining what happened in Poland and in these other countries, and he said the tanks just drove up to their doors and said, got their list. They knew what the list was in their house for their guns, and they took them. And people say sometimes, well, what would they have against a tank? Well, we don't know, but we know what freedom means, and we can't lose our freedom. And Americans will not lose our freedom. We have to have it. Thank you very much.